If I ever move another mountain, it will be because I know it's part of me. If I ever walk across the water, it's because every drop is exactly what I be. When I touch you, it is just because I know that we're all made of same. And when I love you, it's because I'm really loving me all over again. If you ever see a bird fly away, please remember its wings belong to you. If a cloud burst is right above you in the sky, please remember its tears will cleanse your soul. And when I touch you, it is just because I know that we're all made of same. And when I love you, it's because I'm really loving me over the same. Sometimes I don't know how to do what I know how to do. Sometimes I can't remember who I am. Sometimes I forget enough to remember who I really am. So now I'm walking in a brand new vista morning, turning caution into faith, knowing this world is the place of resurrection, and from now on, no need to wait. And when I touch you, it is just because I know what we're all made of. And when I love you, it's because I'm really loving me all over again. And when I touch you, it is just because I know that we're all made of. And when I love you, it's because I'm really love me all over again.
Good morning, Heart and Soul Center of Light. Such a blessing to be with you on this day, designated as Palm Sunday. I want to give thanks and appreciation to Reverend Dr. and Pastor Andrea Earl, and I hope she's getting some good rest. And also appreciation to Reverend Angela Allen, the messenger, who has been in conversation with me about preparation for this particular message conversation, which will be part one of a segment that he and I will also do together on Resurrection Sunday. I'd like to begin by inviting you to have 4 words in mind, and we'll go ahead and write these down because these will be woven in and out of what I want to say about the bumpy, rugged road to victory. These words are courage, persistence, decisiveness, and resourcefulness. Courage, persistence, decisiveness, and resourcefulness. Now I want to invite those in charge to show on the screen the scripture passages that I will refer to as I work with this theme of the rugged road, and also as I interweave these word practices. They're taken from the Gospel according to John chapter 12, verses 1, 2, and 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 11, and 12 through 15. And because I have this wonderful, or we have this wonderful device of technology, I can actually see it myself on Zoom. So I'm going to, again, I invite them to show it on the screen. And let's look at verses 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 12. 6 days before the Passover, Yeshua came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Yeshua had raised from the dead. Here a dinner was given in Yeshua's honor. Martha served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Yeshua's feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. Second frame, please. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. Now, he did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. You can see him there clutching on the money. Next slide, please. Yeshua's response, leave her alone. Yeshua replied, it was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Yeshua was there and came not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he, Yeshua, had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well. They'd already made plans to kill Yeshua. For on account of him, that is Lazarus, many of the Jews were going over to Yeshua and believing in him. Final slide. The next day, the great cloud that had come to the festival heard that Yeshua was on his way to Jerusalem. They took palm branches and went out to meet him, shouting, Hosanna! Save us. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. Yeshua found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt. And if you'll indulge me just a little bit, I want to read this passage also from one other place, namely a new translation of the Bible that is called the New Testament. This is a Gullah Geechee African American version of it. My mother tongue, by the way, but we are my paternal grandmother. And I just want you to hear that part in chapter 12 in this language, in honor of my ancestral lineage. This is a new translation, so you get a copy of this from the Gullah Geechee Sea Islands. It was done in Georgia and South Carolina. Chapter 12, and let's read verse 12 through 15 in the Gullah Geechee. The next day, the big crowd would been come to Jerusalem for the Passover fest. They heard say Jesus been a come to Jerusalem. So then, they cut a whole heap of palm branch and gone out for me, Jadus, in the road. They been a holler say, praise God. God bless the one who will come in the name of the Lord. God bless the King of Israel. Jadus find a yin donkey and he ride upon him. All this been just like they been right in God book say, honor you. Honor must done be scared. Honor what they in Zion look yonder. Honor King the come. Either ride upon a young donkey. Get a copy of this. Now I read chapters 11 and 12 of the Gospel of John in Greek. I read it in Latin. I read it in translated back into Hebrew. I read it in Haitian Creole, and I read these chapters in Gullah Geechee. The advantage of reading a text in different languages is not just performative, but rather it gives you a different perspective and different things to notice that you might not have noticed only in one language, especially the language with which you are most familiar. You know, I've said before also that when you read the biblical text, especially certain narratives about Yeshua, sometimes it's a good idea to not look at the foreground text of what it's saying in this instance about Yeshua and about his disciples. But like watching a movie, instead of looking at the main characters, look at what's going on in the background and who's doing what in the background. Well, on Friday, Reverend Angelo and I were having a conversation about how we would put these two sermons, messages, conversations together. And in the midst of that conversation, I had another one of those revelations that just stunned me from looking at the background text. Now, let me summarize, though, just briefly, these verses I just read, and then let me give you some background to chapters 11 and 12, and then I'm going to unpack this extraordinary revelation about the bumpy, rugged road and about a particular person who, in a way, instigates and who also demonstrates those words I've given you to write down. In the first segment that was read, we hear of a woman named Mary who anoints Yeshua, the son of David, to be the king of a revolutionary movement. That's right. It's time to act, and she makes a decision to activate the time to act. In that same episode, one of Jesus' disciples, named Judas, whose name means praise, pretends to be concerned about the poor. Perhaps he's more jealous that Yeshua is the center of attention, and we're told that, by the way, he either holds the purse, the money they've collected, and or has access to it, and that his pretense is false because he's been taking money out of this purse for himself. I guess kind of as a usury for his services. In the second part of that piece, Yeshua rebukes Judas and maybe the other disciples, even though they're not speaking about what's going on here with all this precious perfume aroma and a year's worth of precious oil that is being used to anoint Yeshua's feet, because apparently maybe they also don't understand exactly what Mary is doing and why she's doing this. But Yeshua says she is actually preparing for my burial. Now, how she knows that we're not told, except maybe she's a politically shrewd woman who can foresee the consequences of what is taking place thus far. At any rate, Yeshua sides with Mary about what she has done. Then there's a little interlude where we are told that the word gets out again to a group of people who are Yeshua's opposition. And now, in a previous chapter where they said they wanted to, quote unquote, kill Yeshua, they've also decided that they need to kill Lazarus, who Yeshua has resurrected from the dead. Then we're told the next day, people who witnessed the resurrection of Lazarus and who also had come from other places hear that Yeshua is going to come into Jerusalem. And they decide, that is the people, to lay palm branches on the ground and greet him as a king. But Jerusalem has a king, Herod, and his successors. And behind that king is Rome. And Rome has an emperor. So this is a conundrum. This is a very serious situation. Now, it also turns out, interesting enough, that this particular passage that is quoted while Yeshua is coming to Jerusalem is from Zechariah 9:9. And in that particular passage, written sometimes between what we call the Old and New Testaments, written sometime probably around the time that the Persians and the Greeks are at war with each other over possession of the land there in Northeast Africa that included Jerusalem, the prophet Zacharias says, really in that passage 9:9, that a Redeemer would come who would defeat the Greeks. Isn't that interesting? Again, the way this passage is being interpreted is not the way we usually talk about it, or the way we usually hear it, as something where Jesus comes in humbly on a donkey. I've said this before too. No, he comes in as a revolutionary, like Solomon had come into Jerusalem as the king back in his day. The donkey is just a symbol, not of humility, but of triumph. Triumph of what? We'll find out more about that next Sunday, but now let me go back. There is a particular person who, in my estimation, more than anybody else, has precipitated this crisis where the leadership wants to get rid of Jesus or Yeshua so they can save themselves and, by their estimation, save the nation. well, who is this person? Is this Yeshua? Is it Peter? Is it James? Is it John? Is it one of the other disciples? Is it Judas? Well, if you read the Gospel of Judas, it could be, but in this instance, and John is not. In this background, there's another person, a woman or two or more, who's actually set it off. In chapter 11 of the Gospel of John, Yeshua and his disciples are moving about doing his teachings, etc., working signs and miracles and wonders. And Martha and Mary sent a message to him that his friend that he loves is sick, Lazarus. You know the story. Yeshua pauses and he doesn't immediately go to Bethany. But I want you to hear this. A particular person sends for him, or two persons send for him, and they say, your friend that you love is sick. I.e. subtext, you need to get here from wherever else you are. Yeshua, as I said, hesitates. He stays where he is for a couple of days, and then he tells his disciples, let's go to Bethany where Lazarus is, because I need to wake him up. His disciples said, well, if he's asleep, he's okay. Then he says, no, he's dead. And he goes with his disciples, but one of them, Thomas, who we'll hear about later on, says, well, let's go with Jesus so we can die with him. I need you to hear that. Let's go. So they know the atmosphere is tense. And remember, they've been chosen not just because they're good teachers, not just because they're good workers, but they're also his security force. They've got to protect him. They have an obligation, if things get rough, to get in the roughness of things. So they go with him. He gets to the outskirts, and the area where Lazarus has been buried and the home of Martha and Mary is evidently has a crowd of mourners. This speaks to the influence of Lazarus and also of Mary and Martha. These must have been persons who were well off, respected as a patron, Lazarus, and as matrons. I've talked about this before. Not just ordinary disciples, but as sponsors of a movement. We get there, Martha comes out. She's excited to see Yeshua, but at the same time she says, if you had been here, almost in a commanding tone, if you had been here, he would not have died. Yeshua, of course, makes the famous statement, do you believe that I am the one? Am I? She says, well, we believe, of course I do, that the Christ, the anointed one, which is another word for the king, that the king of Judah, that the king is coming, and that we'll be resurrected in the last day, the end of oppression from the Romans at that time. And that's why Yeshua says, I am ego eimi. I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, even though he is dead, even though he is slain, even though he's crucified by the Roman Empire, he'll live again. You got to hear that. That's a powerful statement he's making. It's not just a metaphysical, etheric statement. It's a political statement he's making. If he die, I will bring him back to life. Martha believes. She runs into wherever Mary is, because Mary didn't come out here first. He tells Mary that the man, now Yeshua didn't say this in the text, but it's implied. He tells, tells Mary that the master wants to see you. Now Mary gets up and she runs to where Yeshua is, and then she falls at his feet and she speaks to him, and she, in a way, shows adoration, And then he groans at the gravity, the gravitas of the situation. And then she too rebukes him for not being there, for not answering the call, for not being decisive 2 days ago. Remember that word I told you, decisiveness? And then that's when we're told Jesus becomes inflated and that he weeps. Why is he weeping? Is he weeping only because Lazarus is dead? Or is he also weeping because he failed to heed the call of one of the matrons that was sponsoring and bankrolling his ministry? I'm adding this to it for the gravity of it. And then he asks, well, where's his body? And Martha says, when they get to the cave, hey, he's been in there for four days. He's stinking now. And then Jesus said, well, didn't I tell you who I am? And he does his prayer to the Father because for him this is a sign for the people. I thank you that you'll do this and that you'll make this happen, inspired by the words of Martha and Mary. And then he prays and he tells them to open the cave, and he does this kind of imperative statement, Lazarus, come forth. But don't forget who had called him to call Lazarus forth. Those two women, especially the latter. Lazarus comes forth, the people are excited. They are joyful. They go back and they are spreading the word. And the leadership, the politicians, the ones who know the political, social, and economic consequences of what just happened. He didn't just raise a man from the dead. He did something contrary to the status quo. And so Caiaphas, the chief priest at the time, prophesied correctly. Prophesied means to speak forward with political intelligence. He prophesied, he said, it's better for one man to die than it is for a whole nation, for all the people to be decimated. He was prophesying about something that did happen, by the way. He knew what would happen because he knew the Romans. He knew that this resurrection was a statement against the Roman Empire and against the protocol of the pact of peace that had been established between the local leadership and the Roman structure. That this would destabilize that peace. He said it's better for him to die. We got to find a way to get him and stone him and pretend, this is the implied inference here, that it never happened. We don't want any trouble from the Romans because some revolutionary is resurrecting dead people. Oh, if he can resurrect one, he can resurrect more than one. Create a movement that could be threatening for us from the Romans. Then we come to the next thing. Keep all this in mind when I say courage, decisiveness, persistence. Then we get to the scene in chapter 12 where they're having a feast. They're celebrating. It's kind of like a communion. Because, see, the resurrection of Lazarus is anticipating the power of resurrection elsewhere. So they're having kind of a communion, a feast. They're all inclined in a kind of Roman style around a central serving space. And then in the midst of that, that's where somebody makes a decisive decision that's going to change the course of what things could have been if they had just been moving along slowly. This one woman, Mary. Now I'm talking about Mary, who's not the mother of Jesus, who in the first place earlier caused him to get into the ministry. You might remember back in chapter number 2, Mary, his mother, started his movement when she when she commanded him to transform water into wine. And he said, oh, it's not my time to do this. He said, boy, it's time you get the job. And here's your job right now. Change this water into wine. She didn't even argue with him. She told this sister, look, bring it over here, and whatever he tells y'all to do, y'all do that. Because she already knew what he could do. But more than that, that Mary, his mother, was the one who actually initiated, according to the Gospel of John, his ministry. And as soon as they did that, changed water into wine, got good praise about that grade A wine. It says at the end of chapter 2 that his mother led them. His mother, Mary, led him to the next part of his ministry. In other words, his mother activated his ministry. And I'm not talking about Mary of Magdalene, who could have been his wife. From my point of view, she was, I'll just say it. Who was always at all the significant places, especially during this week that's coming up called Holy Week. Read the text. She's there everywhere. And especially next Sunday, don't recall this version. I'm not talking about that Mary, that courageous Mary among other women, again, who supported and bankrolled and financed the movement. Not talking about them now. I'm talking about this Mary, who was influential. This Mary, who can spare a year's worth of value to anoint someone that she believed and wanted others to know was king, and that it was his time to be recognized as such. And more especially, it was his time to take action for the community, to take action beyond what he had done, to be decisive, to be courageous, to persist, and to be resourceful. And she demonstrates that. Being courageous in the face of overwhelming and extraordinary opposition. Can you imagine again? And I understand the patriarchal society of Rome and the patriarchal structure of Judea, a woman of means, among other women of means and intelligence, takes the decisive action that is going to push Yeshua into a limelight as not before, and that is going to intensify the pressure that's in the air for him to be seen and recognized as the leader who will liberate them from the foot of the Romans. This woman is courageous to go against the grain of double patriarchal hierarchy, knowing the position and situation of women in that culture, except for a very few, among which she might have been, who still had clout. Courage is doing what you know you need to do despite overwhelming opposition. Let me say that again. I hope you hear this parable clearly. I said, courage is doing what you know you need to do, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, quote, and its consequences. 2, Mary teaches us to be decisive. Once you make your mind up about what's right, what you need to do, should do, ought to do, don't look back. She knew that when she opened that bottle of oil, perhaps even ahead of time, remember it said it was to be used for his burial, but no, Mary decided right there in the banquet, right there in the midst of the celebration, right there in the midst of his other disciples who weren't doing anything at that moment except looking on, she was going to anoint the king. Now remember this too. Prophets normally anointed the king, not women. Samuel, remember, anointed Saul. Prophets, priests, and kings were anointed by other male leaders, but not here. There's a woman who decides it's time now for people to know who you are. And I'm going to show it right here. You're the king. It's almost like The act of anointing his feet with the oil and wiping with her hair is a coronation. What? Judas got that. He got that. He wasn't just talking about that oil. He knew that the implications of that, first being anointed, second by a woman, was extraordinary. And I just say again, read the Gospel of Judas. You might find something else about his role that's contrary to, or at least different from, the temple interpretation that he portrayed Yeshua. Maybe in his own way, Judas too was part of that which precipitated. Maybe Judas was frustrated that this thing wasn't happening soon enough. And maybe he was hoping that at that appointed time in the garden, Yeshua and the other disciples who were his bodyguards would take charge. And out of disappointment, he hung himself. Maybe that's another way of interpreting that. But at any rate, he got the implication of what was happening. It was more than just about the poor. It was about the poor that he didn't care about per se. But it was also about the significance of what Mary was doing at that moment, and the time of it, and the place where it happened. And as I said, not long afterwards, word gets out. And not only now do the leadership need, and I need to say this important in a very political way, they need for political reasons to quote unquote assassinate Yeshua and put an end to this movement. That's inevitable. When movements get started, they're going to keep going at a certain time. But now they need to get rid of the last one thing, really get rid of the evidence that there was any possibility of insurrection, resistance, etc. by Judeans from the Romans. But Mary was decisive. Mary was persistent too, because that's not the first time that she and her sister had entertained Yeshua. They had entertained her before. So apparently, as matrons and as a patron, they quite frequently demonstrated that they were a part of this extraordinary nascent movement that was beginning in Judea against the oppression, quote unquote, by the Romans, but that had also been in existence for hundreds of years by the Assyrians, by the Babylonians, by the Persians, by the Greeks, and now by the Romans. They had enough. These women were fed up. And Mary took a leadership role here, being decisive. This moment. When? Now. Where? Here. To what effect? Freedom. Persistence. Didn't give up. And we'll see that as this week rolls out, that when others waver, when some disappear to save their lives, the women don't hide. They don't run away. They're right there. And they're going to be the first ones there. And they're going to be the first ones to preach too. But that's more for next week. Then finally, and I'll leave you with this because I'm setting up something for next week. Mary demonstrates that when you face opposition, don't stop thinking. Don't stop imagining. Don't stop your vision. But tap deeply and profoundly into your divine resourcefulness. Turn disadvantage into an opportunity and stay with it. Watch it. They've been watching Jesus all along his ministry, so they were well informed about what he was doing and what he should do. And discover different ways to make that which is right and righteous come to fruition. I mean, who knows? This could have been her plan all along the way. We don't know. We know that she sets it up and she sets it off. But did she and Martha intentionally invite Yeshua back into a hostile situation that they knew all too well as women would push things over a cliff, so to speak. And what was her follow-up plan? Or let's say, what was their follow-up and follow-through plan? We have here the genius of women who are thinking, directing. Yeah, on that bumpy, rugged road to victory. Yeshua is not alone. And he's not just with his male disciples. He's being guided by divine and human, feminine intelligence to become the king that he says he is. From his mama back there, turn that water into wine, boy, to Mary and Martha. Come over here and raise the dead. Let's see where that's going to lead. Well, I think I'll pause right there. Yeah, that's a good place to stop right there. I invite you to go and read now chapters 11 and 12 of John with some of the thoughts I've shared with you. And then run ahead and read chapters 20 and 21. You can look at the foreground and the traditional way the story is told, or you look at the background and see what's driving the story. To be continued. Amen.
The emergence of life, the emergence of love, emergence of joy, emergence of God, the emergence of you, of me, of one, the emergence of faith, of now, of peace, of how, of you, of me, of one. Look all around you, yes, look all around you. We look all around you, one. The emergence of you, emergence to do, to sing, fly with your wings, emergence of you, to come through. The emergence of light, to know, the emergence to be, change and grow, emergence of you, we all come through, the emergence of one. Please look all around you, yes, look all around you, we look all around you, one. The emergence of you, emergence to do, to sing, fly with your wings. It's the emergence of you. We all come through. The emergence of one. The emergence of light, emergence to know, emergence to be. We change and grow. It's the emergence of you. We all do come through in the emergence of one. Please look all around you. Yes, look all around you. We look all around you. One. Please look all around you. Yes, look all around you. We look around you. One.